Hello, this is my second turn-in for my milestone, and this video is going to discuss what I've done this week relative to my project. So at the beginning of the week, I decided to work on the categories. So here's the example test project that I made earlier in the week, and this project was designed to help teach me how this structure is actually working when viewing a table view controller. So essentially I just mocked this up, found an example online, implemented it, and tried to figure out the workings of how it actually works to make these selectable fields and to have the sections be outlined relative to the items underneath. So this was just a practice application that I made, and it didn't take very long, but I've also learned a lot from it. So it was a big task to kind of translate a struct of objects and turn them into just a loading up an objects array essentially. But instead of just hard coding everything like this, I had to figure out a way to translate all this into what I was pulling down from my database, and that was a challenge for me to kind of figure that out. So before, I had a lot of issues with the load data function, which is after you select an inventory organization, you transition into this page, and based off of who you chose, you're going to load that organization's data. So originally I had the item name and the category name being pulled down from the database for however many grabbed items were a part of the table. And I kind of got myself really confused because the name here is the item name, whereas the category name is the name of the category that the user has predefined in another column. So I was trying to kind of match them up together and put them in different arrays and everything like that, and it just got really complicated, as you know. This week it was pretty brutal. We did some whiteboarding and I learned a lot, but the best way to do this was to only take the category names and then compare it to the array count, loop through the arrays, and compare the item name to the category name, or the item.category name to the category name of that selected object. If found, then break. If not found, then append it and add it to the overall inventory object. So this is what works right now. Now, as simple as that sounds, it took a lot to get to this point, because everything commented down here below is all the trial and error that I went through this week trying to make it work. So I was trying to create different arrays, create temporary arrays, move those arrays into another array, and it worked. This worked for the most part. I didn't realize why it kept breaking after like the 8th iteration, but really it was because I was doing an out of index range. So technically this code could have worked, but up here it's much more simplified and it's faster. This code wasn't too bad. They're essentially doing the same thing. It's just this looks a lot more messy. And there's also more arrays involved, whereas this is just looking at one array. So the way that this works is it's taking the category name, which is predefined by the user when they scan an item, and it's loading them into different tables together. So let me go show you my table real quick. So this is the one of the inventory tables, and as I scroll over here, we have the name of the item and we have the category name, and these are predefined through hard-coded text in the scanned inventory. So these are the options that are going to show up on the picker wheel for the user to say what type of item this is, and those are the options as of right now. Once again, this is just for testing purposes, so these will be more defined later on once I figure out what types of items they actually do have. So once that's added to the table, it'll show up here and everything's good. It will pull it down over in the inventory data and everything will be working just well. One of the things I learned this week was when I was trying to do the arrays and kind of match all the items up underneath the categories, it threw off the index, and what was happening was I was passing around the object, which was the raw object from the previous page, and every time this load data function would hit the view did load, it would reset the index back to 0. So essentially you can go from, let me show you. Let's run this on my, okay, oh, that's the wrong simulator. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to log in and show you one of the problems that I had. Oops, there we go. Okay, so this is what I did this week. Canned goods, breakfast, cleaning, other, all of them are bringing back the correct items and the correct quantity from the table, which is good. One of the issues that I was having though is that this is sub-zero of that category, right? And this is 1, and this is 2, and so on. And then, so essentially what would happen was if I clicked Hershey's before, it would bring back this index value of the item. So now it's obviously working, but if I clicked on Chicken of the Sea, it's going to bring back the hairspray. It's going to bring back this one because each time it creates a new category, it's going to reset the index, and that was a headache and a half, honestly, to figure that out. But down here is where it was actually going. So this was a big part of everything. So instead of pulling back the object name up above, I'm pulling it down right here to match it up based off of the index that it's actually on. So I can take the index selection of the row, and then I can match it up on the fly with the name that's given for that object. And I kind of cleaned this up a little bit, so now I'm just passing the whole object based off of what's selected and transitioning it over to the next page. So that's a lot more clean, because before this had a couple more lines of code and it was kind of getting a little crazy trying to keep track of everything. So that was the main task of this week, was to try and figure that out, how to do it in a clean and efficient way. Now, another thing that I did, I kind of ran out of time this week, but I achieved for the most part my main goal of the week. Another thing I did though was I added some functionality that would help the user know, like, if they forgot to enter something. So for example, I'm going to scan this item, click my scanner, I'm going to go down here, scan the item, I'm going to search for it, and let's say I entered a quantity of 12 pens and then I click submit. Well, they obviously forgot to click the category field and fill that out. So I'm going to say, okay, now we're going to go to cleaning. Cool, everything has worked. So now let's try that again, and it works for both fields. So we can go to category, select a category, we'll say it's part of other, and they forgot to enter in a quantity, so this time we need to add a quantity, and then we'll add it to the table, and we are good to go, which is a big part of making sure that the user has completed everything, so later on it doesn't throw off the table. So later on, when I refresh this page, there's the items, and we are in business because everything has been collected that needs to be there. There's nothing missing, which won't throw an error later on, because I've put in these checks that will help prevent, a mishap on loading future images or future categories. And if there's nothing to load, then that's an issue. So I kind of put that code in there to make sure that everything's filled in before it gets submitted to the table. That is all I've accomplished this week, and I'm pretty impressed with the progress and what I've done so far, and I've learned a lot about A lot about arrays again. They're not a hard concept, but when you're dealing with different comparisons and things like this, especially in this language, it takes a little more to figure out how to do things. Whereas C++ and C Sharp, you can just do, a string compare or, an individual character check or something like that and have no issues. But this took a little more forward thinking and a lot more time and effort to try and get all this to work properly. Um, so I'll see you on Tuesday, and thanks for watching.